Now I'm going to speak about the textual analysis, in particular about Catherine Mansfield's The Fly. In the previous two, um, analysis, I focused on the detailed, what I would say, um, detailed messages of Mansfield's story, wherein she wanted to explore, or if on the one hand the complexity of this bureaucratic system that often victimizes the innocent, weak creatures in the name of their, so-called playful, meaningless butchery of, concepts like uh, rigidity, rationality, and all that. And on the other hand, on the other side of the equation, Mansfield wanted to explore the devastations of the immense devastations that sprang out, and complexities that sprang out of the um, uh, you know terrible impact of the First World War, in which, as I repeatedly told you, that Mansfield's own brother was brutally killed in 1917 in the First World War. Possibly that might have an underlying impact in our deeper down psychology. But today, I would like to focus on certain aspects of this particular text. The textual analysis you have to take into account, because when we understand the presence of Woodfield into boss, the very first line, "Why are very snug in your pipe, old Mr. Woodfield?" And at certain step, what I would say, when the boss offered certain whiskey, and the Woodfield told my daughters, don't let me touch this whiskey there. And the boss simply, just intentionally told that you shouldn't be wasting a single thing about it by mixing with water and all that. And Woodfield ultimately enjoyed, taking the whiskey and all that. And that particular whiskey, like an electric shock or like a magnetic substance, what I would say, just dragged him into certain memories wherein he could visualize the garden-like, carpet-like grave where his own daughter had visited, and poor Reggie and Woodfield's boss's son, about the graveyard, how his daughter took out the pot itself when the hotel owner took a heavy money, took a huge amount of money in exchange of a certain kind of jam or like that. She wanted to teach them a lesson and all that. And the beautiful lawn in which the grapes were decorated, where the dead bodies were, and only the particular line when Ripple was describing all that out of the sensations of the whiskey he was given by the boss. The particular line, just you note down, only the quiver of his eyelid showed that he had heard. Particularly this particular line, you see in the text mark, only the quiver of his eyelids showed that he had heard. And and the boss went on, just had possibly gone back, before the 6 years, when 6 years before the telegram came to Mackie, which gave him the news that his son had been killed in the First World War. But before that, he was very much jubilantly groomed. With father and son, the boss and the son used to, take a kind of walk every morning, and all these things. And he was groomed to be making a beautifully, just like a cultured officer, efficient in every norms of the office, of the office bearers norms, and he was taking up the whole sole responsibility, supposed to take up the responsibility of the boss's business after the boss, and he was shaping up so well, and all on a sudden this kind of disaster came to light. That telegram before 6 years that crashed the world of the boss. And after Udipil's mention of the graveyard, the boss started the boss was left to a different world, understand? And ultimately the Udipil couldn't get any answer from the serious attention from the boss, and the boss was living, understand? The boss Udipil left the the boss simply ordered the Mackay, his what would say, the man who used to guard him, in his mansion and all that, that for half an hour nobody should be allowed to meet him. And the boss, the simple line, you see, that was exactly what I was trying to point out, try to understand, a particular line, what I would say, for half an hour. And the boss, really, when the boss, after, uttering very good sir to Woodfield, without listening to Woodfield at all, only the quiver of his eyelids showed that he had heard. He was left to him alone, and he gave a serious warning to Mackay not to allow anybody within half an hour. And he was settled into his drawing room. He wanted, the line shows, just focus on this particular expression. He wanted, he intended, he had arranged to weep. Understand? He wanted, he intended, he had arranged to weep. Weep, as we know, everybody, tears, laugh, smile, it comes automatically. And if one has to suffer, one suffers, nobody has anybody to arrange to weep. Just focus on this. He wanted, he intended, he had arranged to weep. We arrange certain materials, we arrange our decorations, we arrange, lots of our celebrations, our money, our expenditures, and all these things, our decorative arts. But nobody has anybody in this world, to arrange to weep, not at all. So there was a semblance of certain artificiality, though not at all. It is quite. It is not quite. We are not quite assured of the fact that the boss was absolutely artificial in trying to weep. Maybe he was left alone in his own. He had everything around about his only son. So he lost his only son, and he was left alone in this big world. But still, the zest for life. We can understand the zest for life could fight the loss of even a lone son. And the boss continued before 6 years it happened. And even now the boss is going strong, even stronger, despite being 5 years older than Uribild. The boss looked very agile, very competitive, and very young and energetic like that. So even the crashing news of his lone son's death couldn't penetrate his inner strength. So, but still, when he says he wanted, he intended, he arranged to it, we possibly do smack of certain kind of lineage of artificiality, though it's not quite clear. Maybe the boss was a bit different kind of man who wanted to absorb the entire aura of shock or pain in his own world. But then all on a sudden, you see, it is a question mark, because we smile, we cry, we express our delights, joys, everything, and it comes automatically without anybody's without the effect of any external force. Understand? We cannot smile artificially. We cannot just when in a dramatic situation and all that. But life is, when a man is simple, and when all our all our expressions come automatically. It becomes too much credible. But in case of boss, it looked like something very, mechanical, though it's not quite clear. Maybe the boss, in his own unique way, wanted to express or a bit of enjoy his own sorrow. The way Kazi Nazrul Islam enjoyed his, only son's death, Aniruddha. And throughout the entire, he was deeply, I come to remember, Kazi Nazrul Islam, our great revolutionary poet Kazi Nazrul Islam, who lost his, a very young son, Aniruddha, Kazi Aniruddha. And he entirely had smelled the, what I would say, Hasnu Hana throughout the night. And when he was immersed in terrible kind of shock. So maybe the boss also wanted to experience that shocking news in a different way, because after long 6 years, when he was settled down into nobody mentioned before boss about his son's death again, so that he can feel it anymore. All on a sudden, Woodifield's presentation of the grave of the bosses, forced boss to be settled into his own aura, But just then, another boss within that boss, though it may be questioned whether the boss was artificial or not, in his outburst of expressing sorrow or deep kind of weeping or lamenting or all that, maybe so. But all of a sudden, the very that particular fly episode came to light. And when that fly, all of a sudden the boss saw in his very great big ink pot, understand, an odd fly was put into the ink pot. And the boss, all of a sudden, got particular, as if the boss, grabbed it with both hands as an opportunity to withstand the stamina of that little fly, to get the better of the life's hardships, life's difficulties, mechanically created obstacles and all that, and these draconic abstractions that always want to stifle our existence and all that, and all of a sudden the boss was experimenting with the life of the innocent fly, and the fly was trying to come out of it. It was all getting ready, and certain expressions. The boss repeatedly, not once, not twice. He meant it for the third time, but maybe the boss would have continued the same repetitive action of putting obstacles and ink until and unless the fly dies. Maybe that's the suggestion. Though here it is indicated that possibly for the last time. No, that possibly, it only means possibly. It's not possibly. Because anytime, anyway, certain things could have happened. And despite knowing the fly's life was in terrible danger, his front legs, his back legs, his everything, his was getting so much suffocating. The boss still continued to experiment with the life of the little fly. So it actually, what I would say, it actually unveils the spiritual bankruptcy of the boss. He and all his, ethical, aura proved to be a mere mockery of his underlying, draconic self, and in which he wanted to hammer the life of the innocent creature. Though it looked like as if he was visualizing like a visionary poet that how his own son, was struggling against the enemy soldiers all around. When that son might have been surrounded by the enemy soldiers and enemy troops, possibly his own son was trying desperately to come out of the enemy in Mahabharata, the Chakrabuha, like that, all around. He was trying to come out of that and to struggle for existence. Possibly it reminded him while the fly was trying to come out of the ink pot and was trying to survive. He possibly wanted to experiment, and he kept experimenting on and on. That really something, even once or twice, but the way it has been narrated, it simply reveals the speech, not only meanness and shabbiness of the boss's character, not only simply the spiritual bankruptcy, but at the same time it unbuilds the then bureaucratic machinery, their hollowness of the self. It simply reveals that. And now I need another 10 minutes to finish it up. Just now, let me come to the next portion of the description. Catherine Mansfield is a pioneering modernist writer from New Zealand who was renowned for her innovative short stories, and she was celebrated for her ability to capture complex human emotions and experiences in deceptively simple prose. Mansfield's, I'm reading out from your text, it will help you. Mansfield's works often explore themes of alienation, loss, and the fleeting nature of life, reflecting our own struggles with the illness and mortality. And now here let me come to the different kind of explanation here also. Initially the boss and Oedipal seem to be two different characters. Boss is of a different dimension, of a higher social hierarchy, with having all sorts of sublime values, and Oedipal having nothing to do with those delicate feelings and all that. But when we delve deeper into the reality, we come to detect that the boss and Oedipal are two opposite sides of the same coin. Possibly Oedipal is better a character in the form that whatever he thinks, he tells, whatever he understands, he reveals, with all his simplicity and with his all with his limitation, he unveils whatever he thinks correct, and whatever he is not that kind of introvert. He is a bit extrovert, and he explores everything, very very little things with little to do with inner sublime things. But ultimately Woodfield is a real character with no kind of artificiality touching upon him. He happens to be a genuine character. While in the boss, under the mask of the gentility, appears here as the power symbol bureaucrat, dragonic monster who sucks the blood of a little creatures through his massive power control. Had he been at all bothered with his son's death, he could never have experimented with that kind of little fly, the life of a little fly. Again and again, as if he experimented with 3 blows. Possibly, the story suggests, had the fly been able to come up from that terrible, delicate network of obstructions for the 3rd time, the boss would have dropped another drop of ink on the fly until and unless the fly. So this kind of naked mentality on the part of the boss, or the power-centric bureaucratic naked crime chain machineries, the bureaucrats, rebels the state power, the futility of the state power, and the fragility of our life. Our life is too much in the hands of this bureaucratic system. And Catherine Mansfield exactly points out to the uncertainties of life, to the void of life, wherein we innocent people get killed and get tortured and get destroyed because of the whims of the power-centric, egotistic bosses, like the boss here presented in the story. They play with the life of the innocent creatures, the way in the Greek tragedy, the classical tragedy, the way God plays with our life, the wanton boys play with the innocent flies. Similarly here, the fly represents the exploited, tortured working class community, or the common little common people whose life is destroyed, whose predicament is determined by the power-centric bureaucratic crime chain machineries. They utilize their crime chain machineries throughout, and they have created such a network of crime chain that nobody can get the better of their domination. The way, just like a cobweb, they have created the crime chain machineries everywhere. But what the little creatures proved to be the experimented organ of or guinea pig-like experimentation. They experiment with the life of the innocent people, and they want to prove a point that nobody can get the better of their power, the message is loud and clear that the bureaucratic class can do anything. the fate of the innocent people is within the hands of this bureaucratic, dragonic powers, power centric, people. And this, the hollowness, the fragility, the meaninglessness, the futility of this power centric equation comes to light. So we have to be very, very cautious about this reality of this. Without the high episode, this story would have been incomplete completely. Understand? And moreover, you have to understand that here Catherine Mansfield's own brother died in 1917 because of the during the First World War. So maybe her own personal experimentation of created a background music like that. But despite the fact, Catherine Mansfield belonged to the Bloomsbury group along with his husband Middleton Murray and other, D.H. Lawrence and others who always wanted to create a very, very progressive outlook, who wanted to unveil how the social dragons, the Bloomsbury group to which Catherine Mansfield belonged to, she wanted to prove that these social monsters, play with the innocent people just like toys. And this social network should be changed for the betterment of the social society. And no war, particularly the World War, can never bring anything good to the cause of the humanity. The message is loud and clear. War can never be the solution of any concrete human problem. One war brings another war. Where one particular war comes to an end, the seeds of another war germinates. The First World War, when the First World War came to an end, the predicament of through the Versailles Treaty, the Second World War was in the making. And who knows, when the Second World War came to an end, maybe the seeds of the Third World War is very much in there. So the constant mutability of life, the constant changes of life, the social hierarchy and everything, we have to understand that we cannot control certain things which go beyond our control. And in this particular, Catherine Mansfield wanted to prove a point through this particular story that boss's inner turmoil, or Catherine Mansfield's own personal life, which was not so. She lived only 34 years. She, despite living, despite dying an immature death at the age of 34, she contributed to the Bloomsbury Group and to the betterment of the human society. Throughout her life, she wanted to prove a point that in this social network, this social bureaucratic system should be changed. And here, in the context of the fly, Mansfield again and again proved the point that, we certain times we think that life is all over for us. But the zest for life is so much so. জীবন তৃষ্ণা যাকে বলে, বাঁচার ইচ্ছা, the will to for life, just for life is so much that can fight the loss of even the lone son. A father can fight the loss of a lone son because the just for life is too much for any particular thing. Just for life means in Bengali জীবন তৃষ্ণা. We drink water when we get what I would say, tired. So similarly, just for life, to the music of life, to enjoy the music, we can fight any loss. So nothing is broken in our life. The moment one seems to be broken, the next moment we can understand we are on the making of a new world. So this world is constantly developing and developing. Nowhere is in the melting point. When we think it's all over, it's all finished, we want to build, there we find another replica of a new light. And when the darkness is too deep, when the darkness is overwhelming and deep, we only visualize the herald that it is signaling the heralding of a brilliant morning sun. To quote in P.V. Shelley's word, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? So this replica of exuberance, this replica of the future indication is everywhere there. But the uncertainties of life, the fragileness of all, the transitoriness of life, and the whimsicalities of the bureaucratic system that victimize the innocent people is stands very much evident in every word and every line of the context of the short story. And Catherine Mansfield proved the point within so much a brief canvas. proving a point that nobody can deny the magic of this short story. Rabindranath Tagore, Anton Chekhov, Leo, what I would say, you represented you told me the name? Jimmy Valentine, Henry, and all that. There are so many other, Anton Chekhov, Henry, and there are so many, Rabindranath Tagore, Sarath Chandra Chattopadhyay, and so many others, all over, that brilliant, there are so many short stories. But this particular short story, with the penetrating message of the transitoriness and futilities of life, no short story writers ever attempted that. Even the conventional projection of the short story, definition of Rabindranath Tagore's short story, as I told you the other day, Rabindranath Tagore defined the short story. ছোট প্রাণ, ছোট কথা, ছোট ছোট দুঃখ কথা, নিতান্তই সহজ সরল, প্রত্যহ বিস্মৃতি রাশি, প্রত্যহ যেতেছে বাঁচি, তারই দু চারিটি অশ্রু জল, অন্তরে অতৃপ্তি রবে, সাঙ্গ করি মনে হবে, শেষ হয়ে হইল না শেষ. When the entire things, little here and there, the jotting of incidents, ultimately when it comes to an end, we think, no, it should have been extended further. All kinds of questions come to light. But here in this question, the traditional methodology of Anton Chekhov or Ohendian or Rabindranath Tagore and all that, Sarath Chattopadhyay, all that, here, Catherine Mansfield opens up a new category of short story where the message is too meaningful. Just like, trench poets, what I would say, Wilfred Owen, where the soldier was fighting in the battlefield and was reading Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali in front of the bullets, and was fighting with the Wilfred Owen's, short stories. The soldier Wilfred Owen, who got himself, trench poet, who got himself killed while fighting in the battle, but he composed so many brilliant, poems. Here also, in the context of this story, Catherine Mansfield was suffering from tuberculosis, was suffering from all kinds of difficult diseases, social networks, resistances, but still she managed to write and compose. She managed to deliver such a brilliant short story like The Fire, which is beyond which by any standards has been registered and reckoned as one of the best 5 short story writers ever written to this world across all languages and all throughout the world, all nations. Just because the immensity and penetration of the message is too much for us to deny, which in the traditional short story writers is, in so far in O. Henry, Anton Chekhov, Rabindranath Tagore, and Sarath Chandra Chattopadhyay, all, that kind of penetrating message, one short story posing us so much of challenges, so much of void, so much of terribly unsettled questions that we cannot get the better out. We finish up the story, but we cannot, out of the challenges, the questions posed to us. And that's why this short story, The Fly, must be regarded as one of the, here the Mansfield uses symbols. The pen is a symbol of power. The blotting paper is a symbol of the subconscious, consciousness of the, of the boss who wants to erase out his guilt complex after killing the fly. And, and everything, the boss himself represents a bureaucratic, power-centric, bureaucrat like that. So throughout the symbols, a little of, little use of vowels and consonant sounds, the short and precise sentence constructions, the meaning, when the meaning is too deep, the sentence construction, the presentation becomes very, very brief and concise. And within such a short sentence, with the interweaving of the vowel and consonant sounds, within a very delicate orchestration of synchronizing sentences, one kind of complex sentences with very, very precise, simple sentences. He, like a juggler, he juggles our imaginations like a hypnotizing magician. He hypnotizes us with his message, with his a terrible kind of spontaneous rhythm, and with his terrible kind of penetrating message that is beyond resistance for all of us, for all the times to come, in the present, past, and future as well. That's all, Dr.